Every now and then, the indie overlords answer our prayers and deliver us exactly what we've been asking for. And last week, that came in the form of supergroup Boygenius delivering their record, The Record, and rightly so, in this highly anticipated album, it was welcomed by fans with open arms, and vinyl sales took a high spike. Now, I'll be honest, I know exactly who Julien, Lucy and Phoebe are, and I knew they'd all collaborated on Boygenius, but prior to this album, I'd only heard a few of their songs from their original EP in 2018. And once I got over the initial self-loathing of failing in my duties of being an indie person, it came as quite a nice surprise and a fairly unique treat that I could hear music from artists I appreciated collaborating together on a new project for the first time that everyone has told me is pretty good. As I think the last thing anything like this was released which I actually enjoyed was Everything You've Come to Expect by The Last Shadow Puppets back in 2016. So rightly so, I was pretty hyped to jump into this album, but just how good was The Record by Boygenius? Well, let's get on with it then. The record kicks off with an a cappella song, Without You, Without Them. It felt like a pretty unique and good way to start the album and reminded me of some of the interlude songs off of An Awesome Wave by Alt J. But at times it felt as if the song was almost about to break into a sea shanty. But overall it was toned down enough to remain a good start to the album. $20 sounds like a decently produced modern indie song till midway with the breakdown of the overlapping vocals really dialing up my interest in what was happening. I was pretty happy that the track transformed from something that was just plodding along into a fairly creative and decent ending, where in the final third of the song, dare I say it had shades of classic U2 songs. Really enjoyed Emily I'm Sorry, and it's a great tune that gives a sense of immersion in water from the constant background instrumentals and the delicate vocal performance. Now, if that made no sense to you, a comparable song which is of a completely different genre might make you understand what I mean. If you listen to How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees, those initial opening piano instrumentals make you feel as if you're dipping into a nice hot bath. And if you played these two tracks one after the other, hopefully you'd understand what I mean. But if you want a more simplistic take on the song, I'd say it's a real highlight on the album for myself. True Blue is more of the same tone throughout the instrumental and vocal performance, except with a more monologuing style of writing which keeps the song progressing along at a great pace. It means although the tone of the song is extremely similar to the previous ones, the writing style change-up meant that the song didn't bore me. Cool About It reflects a different style with fingerpicking on the guitar, but keeping the same tonality once again in the vocal performance, reflecting lyrics that discuss hiding feelings of embarrassment, resulting in a pretty earnest delivery of the song. Not Strong Enough and Revolution Zero felt like, once again, pretty much more of the same stuff to me. Very well written songs with great vocal performances, but they trundled me by at this point in the listening experience. Not reflecting enough of a change-up which I felt was kind of needed by this point. They're still great tracks though that could easily stand by themselves, with Not Strong Enough reminding me of a song called Turn by The Night Cafe. And at one point I thought Revolution Zero was going to break out into A Day in the Life by the Beatles. Leonard Cohen once again returns to the acoustic guitar with a slightly faster strumming pattern and that monolinguistic style of writing, which is pretty good. It's got some really great lyrics in the track, such as I Might Like You Less Now That You Know Me So Well. Satanist provided a nice change to harsher guitar tones and a more soft punk styled song, which I quite enjoyed, with a really good progression towards the end of the song, taking the song in a completely different angle to where I thought it was originally going. Where in Love was once again a very earnest and open song, discussing the risks that one takes when admitting feelings such as love, and the jump that you have to take when you're truly dedicating yourself to another person, accepting them for their past and also the potential that the other person has to hurt you. I think this song lyrically was the best on the album. And it's the one that, on an album full of sad undertones and emotional gut punches, really did connect with me and I related to the most. And all in all, got the man tears flowing. For me, this was the best song on the album, really stood out, and it's where the whole record really clicked for me as well. And the rest of the song suddenly made a lot more sense and I felt more attached and appreciative of the record as a whole. Leading into the last two tracks of the album, we first had Anticure, which was a great song and sounded as if it could have been taken straight off a Wolf Alice album, merging into the closing song of the album, A Letter to an Old Poet, which felt like a track with a lot of backed up and pent up feelings of anger, which hadn't really been reflected in the prior songs. And it seemed as if it was the big outburst of the album and the true emotion flowing through what they'd been trying to say the entire time. And it really did feel like a tonal shift, ending the album with a feeling of renewal, confession and realisation. To me, I felt it was a really great ending to this album. I mean, first of all, wow, what an album this is. I think you can't deny that the writing is great and the production is pretty top-notch on the album. And well, that's kind of what you should be expecting from this style of supergroup of already established artists. But still, I think the final delivery of the record is one that should be appreciated nonetheless. The writing at times really reflects how to deliver a great style of monologue writing. In songs such as True Blue, where it feels like the delivery of the lyrics is just a speech or a flowing conversation without sounding like the vocal is just rambling aimlessly, reflected in certain albums in the past year. The lyrics also seem to focus a fair bit on the projections that the group puts up to the world, dealing with the ways in which we almost spew out our ideals and opinions without little thought or minor regard, to the ways in which we truly feel, or how we actually deal with situations when push comes to shove. And it often had me confused as to how I actually felt in the reaction to a lot of the work on this record. The tone of the album is really consistent and coherent, whilst reflecting a lot of different styles, which was pretty impressive. I mean, I could highlight a bunch of different genres in here, such as mild country, indie rock, punk rock, soft punk, and general good vibes. And it's hard to pinpoint where this album belongs, as it's quite an amalgamation of styles. Yet once again, there's still that clear cohesion to the progression of the album. This thing really does get you in the feels as well, so don't dart into it if you're wanting some happy-go-lucky tunes. Prepare yourself. I think maybe a critique of the album is that it does feel a bit samey after 6 or 7 songs at times. And maybe there could have been a bit more life injected into certain songs on the album. But for me, I think this plays more into the album being relatively relaxed and easy listening, modernistic indie album. So if you're wanting bursts of energy switching from high highs to low lows, this probably isn't for you. Generally though, I think the quality of this album really shines through. And it felt like a really safe listening experience where I wasn't worried that the standards of the songs were going to drop as we went on. Or I wasn't anxious that I dislike any of the tracks or need to skip any of the record. Which is a pretty great feeling when listening to an album for the first time from a band you haven't dedicated much time listening to before. Saying that though, I do feel the combination of fan bases and the 5-year wait for the album has built up the hype and anticipation around this record to an unknown extent. It's maybe just not quite a masterpiece yet, but saying that, it is still to a very high standard. Overall though, I think just through purely reflecting the quality, consistency, cohesion and pure talent on this album, I'd be going with a solid 8 out of 10. So when all's said and done, I would hold this record in pretty high regard as one of the better releases of 2023. But there we are, my take on the record by Boygenius. Feel free to let me know what you thought of the album in the comments. A well-written record. Good for you, Boygenius. Good for you. As always, feel free to like and subscribe if you're new here. And on that note, I think I'll say ta-ra for now, and I'll see you later.